Earlier this month, my buddy Ethan won the Planetary Qualifier held in Lincoln, Nebraska with his Cad BLUE. Now, I had the pleasure of talking with him about this amazing deck that he's created, his various matchups in the Planetary Qualifier, and just generally how he wants to win with this deck. So, without further ado, here's that conversation. This Cad BLUE is something we really haven't seen much of, at least doing really well in tournaments. So a lot of people were really interested about it as soon as they saw you won a PQ with it. And you've been working on this for a while. And what is your, general game plan with this list? How do you want to win?
Coming from set two, I was a Boba Blue player. Obviously, Boba Blue got banned, or Boba got banned, and so had to pivot to a new leader. And Cad was actually the last one I tested. I tried Kira. I ran Kira for a good while. I think I touched on that in your last video from the Memphis content you covered. And she was fun, but it felt like you really had to work hard to get the value out of her, since you were having to pay an extra resource to use the shields, and you would oftentimes just be putting shields on your own guys so that you could flip and mitigate her negative side for your own units. But I tried Krennic as well with some interesting interactions like Forlom and Toro trying to cheese the bounty hunters, which that were some cool things there. But Cad ended up just being such automatic value. There's a lot of nuance to just making sure you have your pinging online the whole time. Cad will often start to run out of strength if you let a couple turns go by in the early game where you're not pinging. As far as like game plan goes, McClunky's a giant part of the deck's ability to abuse the targeted hand hate with Bazine, and then also getting crazy 2-for-1s where you can just replay your turn one on turn two. If you're playing against any deck where they don't have like hand hate, I would say your number 2 turn ones are Crafty Smuggler and Bazine. I think you always want the option to be first player, because if you have Bazine, opening the game with Bazine and just getting rid of their turn one is better than pinging it over a few turns. You just get to start with a clean slate and get to keep Bazine. And then, if they play a unit on turn two, you can McClunky ping and kill like an X4. So kill like a Falcon, or it'd kill, if they played Fighters for Freedom, or, there's a lot of that kind of stuff. And so, being able to basically play Power of the Dark Side through that ability is very strong. I think Crafty Smuggler is just mega value. Crafty Smuggler just gets a lot of automatic value because, if they play a Battlefield Marine, or if they play a Sabine unit, if they play a Battlefield Marine, you get the kill for sure. If they're playing Sabine unit, then it forces them to have to trade, because if they go to base with Sabine turn 2 or something, Crafty Smuggler is going to kill the Sabine unit and live, and that's mega value. And so, obviously, the Cartel Spacer, Pike Sentinel are they're 2-of, so they're less auto useful. But I find the Pike Sentinel to be a nice blocker in the mid game when you want to save your units from getting like Code or Record. Oftentimes, a Pike Sentinel on the board prevents them from playing a Record that really impacts your board too massively, because Pike's just there to block Cad from dying. And then when I talk about my matchups later, I'll tell you how saucy the Cartel Spacer is, but it's just such a versatile card. Extremely underrated as far as the on-the-fly exhaust.
It really is.
But yeah, those are like the turn ones. Turn two in this deck is interesting because obviously you have Power of the Dark Side, so you can just opt to, play Power on turn two, and then just set up for like a Forlom on the third turn. But if it's a space heavy deck, maybe you lean more towards the P38. Obviously, if they land a TIE Phantom, Perilous Position will be your best bet at taking care of that on the spot. But then I've actually found that Boba Fett is a really solid play if you're okay with letting something live with just pinging, because his value on the board just gets stronger the longer the game goes. And usually, if against Tarkentown decks, if you can get your opponent to use Tarkentown on Boba Fett, oftentimes they'll even have to use it before it'll kill him. They'll just use it on him while he has like A damage, and then they'll have to still whack into it with one more thing or play a bearing raid or whatever. But that'll set up your ambushers like Forlom, Bosk, and the bigger targets towards the end of the deck from being protected, right? And so if they spend a lot of time on Boa, that's great. P38 is awesome. It's not Underworld, but it's kind of like the Ruthless Raider in Cad Tarkentown, because it pings just like the Underworld units do, except you get to choose where it goes. And I look at it like you're getting two CAD pings basically, and they both get to be your choice. And so
Exactly. You're
a
kind of
lot of
skirting the underworld ability, but you just
yeah,
get to choose where the ping goes, so it's even better.
yeah, and so like a lot of times if you're playing like a Django Red and they open with like a Kylos tie or something, an X2, you could play any unit. But let's say you play a Cartel Spacer just because you're matching space and you have that play, you can ping it. Smart players will often play a second unit, like punishing one is a pretty good answer to putting a lot of health on the board so they can afford a few pings before like the tie gets burned down. But with the P38, you can still solo out, that one more ping you need on the silencer without having to lose the crafty or the cartel spacer or whatever it was before. And then of course the P38 still trades in to the punishing one. I just like it for its versatility. Obviously, it's a really strong card in like Palpiolo because of the way you can sack it and then ping again. Um, but I haven't found too many scenarios where I was wishing it was Underworld. Obviously, it'd be just OP if it was Underworld and then a ping of its own.
That'd be so
I
cool,
wish,
though.
right? Um, yeah. So those are kind of the first couple early turns. Um, then we start getting into the mid game. So I have Long Pikes in the deck because of the existence of Force Throw, Pillage, Spark of Rebellion. The Long Pikes it's a reserve turn play. You almost never would play it out of hand because the value really comes when your opponent taps out for a pillage, and then you still have a 4/6 body. That still pings them, right? And then the shield ability turns out to be really strong if you're, preserving something like Forlom that's already ambushed, so that he's not susceptible to an ambush from like let's say Plo Koon or whatever, or just a Quinlan ping or whatever. And so Long Pike is just hard to kill. I mean, it's the Obi-Wan stat line, but even cheaper. And yeah, he's just there as a backup. You need to have him. Otherwise, you can get really ripped apart if you get early sparked or an early force throw, and then you're in that pillage range. You just want to have something to do. And I actually enjoy him against even villainy green decks when you might be in the mid game and you don't want to play something that dies immediately to like a Vader ambush. Because most of these villainy palp decks, they only maybe have like one maul, so it's unlikely that they're gonna like maul into Long Pike. But just putting something on the board without using your hand as a way to draw out some of their big targets, like maybe you play Long Pike and then that makes them play Avenger or Devastator, and then you can save your big bombs until they've had to use theirs on just you churning out some mid-tier value cards, and then you have all the answers at the end of the game, and they've already purged theirs. So that's where I
Exactly.
see Long Pike being nice. Takedown. A lot of people have identified Takedown as a strong card with CAD, but it's still a pretty expensive card at the rate. But it is useful versus big leaders. So if you're playing against an Anakin or something, um, there was a time when I was running Rivals Fall in this deck. But I think with the pings online, usually Takedown. I mean, if you want to, it'll kill like a Kylo Ren or a Sabine on deploy. But usually you want to be doing a little bit more than that for board development. I look at it as another way to kill a DJ or tech. It's a good card to just have. Usually you only feel like you need to play it once because you'll just keep the deck is very unit focused, right? So you just want to keep the units coming, kind of create that value engine. But this is kind of where the deck turns up is resource 4, and so I have 3 Forloms and 3 Bosks, and this is pretty much the core of the deck is these 2 units and the value they'll give you. I mean, if you've been doing a good job with the pings or playing just Bazine into power as the first 2 turns to get rid of their plays, then if they play like an X5 or they just deploy Sabine, Forlom will kill any X5 because of the ping. And then obviously you have Zuckuss, so you can threaten an even bigger potential play. But oftentimes Zuckuss is a pipe dream. I mean, I think every time I play against like an Obi-Wan, I happen to have the combo, so they'll deploy this 4/7 Sentinel, and then they just get 7/7 ambushed by Zuckuss, and that feels pretty sick. But since he's one of those cards in the deck that doesn't do, he's one of the few cards in the deck that at a higher cost doesn't do anything immediately unless you have the combo online. It's a 2 of, and it's there just to make sure you're not bluffing. Like you do run Zuckuss, so you can have this ability. And sometimes he's just a good like fell the dragon soaker. So if you were playing against a blue green villainy deck, they probably run 2-ish rivals and 2 fells or something. If they're burning a card like that on a Zuckuss, that's gonna help you be able to stick a Cad or an Avenger later, most likely, since he does come with like stat line high enough to be taken down by Fel. But Bosk is really the money. So if you go Forlom and then you go Bosk on 5, this walks you into the Cad flip turn with the ability to play McClunky and ping for 6 if Cad is not out, or 7 if Cad is out, because you'll do the 3 from McClunky, the 1 or the 2 from Cad Bane, and then the 2 from Bosk playing an event. And so it's just massive, massive value. Even in the tournament, I was playing against a Obi-Wan or an Anakin Blue and had Bosk out, killed like a Cassian or something on 5 resources, and then he opens with a pretty safe play of Obi-Wan into an empty board just to set up his Anakin deployment so that he's protected, and if I kill Anakin, then he gets XP. But with Bosk on the board, I'm able to just play McClunky, kill the Obi-Wan, and he doesn't get any of the XP value or the draw card for the Anakin Force unit being out. And so it's just devastating, right? Like the boss pings, and yeah, it just threatens a ton. And oftentimes, Forlom might be the first thing to get Tarkin down, but then boss comes in and he's the same but better. And so you're just setting yourself up really nicely. This is kind of where the deck has a little bit of nuance. A lot of times on 6 resources, you have like a few things you can do. Obviously, Bosk is a great answer. Like, let's say you did have the Zuckuss line right after Forlom, and the opportunity presented itself if let's say they deploy Quinlan Boss or something, and they're like, basically egoing it. We'll take that all day and just kill the leader for free. But you can go Bosk and then still McClunky as your 6 resources, right? Or a lot of times I find myself playing 2/3 drops. So Relentless Pursuit is kind of like this takedown number 2, but it's conditionally much better than takedown. I like it because if you deploy Cad, and let's say we're in the Obi-Wan scenario, you can just capture Obi-Wan, get a shield to Cad, and then you just have this like 4/8 with a shield basically that you can use them to kill something for free. And like versus Han Yellow, I use Relentless Pursuit to shield my Cad unit, which prevented something like a Han unit ambush from being able to take him out, because while he did have damage, now he has a shield. So if they don't have like the bouncer in hand or whatever, then Cad is, out to attack for 7 and just be super, super annoying. And so Relentless Pursuit is a strong option. And then, Boba Fett Disintegrator again, and one of those units you can just play at any time and it's going to feel good. The same reason why you see it in yellow-green decks. It's just value. The top end is Cad, Snoke, Avenger. Cad Bane is really like your super laser blast plus everything more. I find versus almost every archetype of deck, Sabine, Django, on yellow, you name it. He comes in, and with the Cad leader out, you can ping before, so you can actually capture up to 10 HP of things because you can ping for 2, then capture. Or a lot of times, if you can capture less things, that's preferable, because then if they do have the answer to Cad, they don't get all of them back, right? So sometimes it's better to just capture X amount and then use the 2 ping from Cad leader out, because he almost never dies on the 6, and just kill the last thing, right? Because
Exactly.
you've been pinging up to this, like you've been pinging up to that point, so you want to just, it's better to just get rid of something forever.
That's one of the
And
nastiest combos is taking less units and then just finishing off the last unit remaining with your ping.
oh yeah,
That's
and
better
like
than
it feels
capturing it, you
good.
know?
Yeah, like I like the card draw is really nice, especially when they're freeing things like a Ruthless Raider, because obviously they want to. But I mean, I've even done things versus Jenga where they'll free the Ruthless Raider and and then like two Raiders on the field, right, is 12 health. So I'll actually just replay my Cad Bane, killing my first one, or like if they play a second one, I'll replay Cad Bane, which causes my first one to die, freeze the second Ruthless Raider, then Cad Ping. Um, a lot of times you are able to actually capture both of the Ruthless Raiders again, and so it's just like a new way to re-envelope them. If they're slamming these big health things. So he's got utility in that regard. And then that's like another way to reset his health. But I like, as a 3 of, you almost always have him. So it feels incredibly consistent. You just need to use your 6 resource turn with Cad Leader out to set you up for pretty much a blowout, because you'll just suck up the board versus Sabine. You know, Record gets sucked up, if not killed, because oftentimes his ambush is probably going to leave him weak. And so being able to just say nope, and make them have like a timely or something in order to actually get rid of him. Smoke and Avenger, pretty standard stuff. These were less played. I mean, Avenger is really only that good against grindy games versus like green villainy, blue green villainy, that kind of thing. A lot of times the CAD stabilization into either playing more removal or Snoke on top of that, chokes out the game for most people. So it's just icing on the cake, but it feels good to have those. I'll touch a little bit about the alternate kind of strategies with this deck. So that's pretty much the unit centric ride up the curve. But there's a few cards in here that I haven't mentioned yet. So like Vigilance, Bounty Hunter Crew. I touched on my Clunky a little bit, but then there's like Restock as well, and Super Laser Blast. So versus Blue Green Villainy versus Boss Blue, which is seemingly a lot less popular now that On Yellow is coming in full force. I think those control pairs are pivoting to a different, means of control. Maybe it's just blue green Palp, but you have incredibly good matchups into control mirrors because you have Bazini and McClunky, so you can reuse these same important cards over and over. You can even do that with BHC, so you can call back Vigilance over and over, restock, because I hate to have it, but it's the safety net in case they get a lucky Vigilance and you lose some BHCs or whatever. At least you have that card, and then you can put everything back in the deck. And then a lot of times in the mirror, just showing it at the end of the game when you've already gotten rid of theirs, they'll just concede because they know how things go after that. And then like Super Laser Blast, it's just there mainly for green villainy, things that are playing Vader over and over again, right? Sometimes, or Yoda. Yoda is less popular, but I see him a lot on Carabas. Sometimes he'll flip, kill something big, then play like Luke or whatever, right? And it's just better to just kill this giant 4/9 and kill this 6/7 and just reset, because after that, even an Anakin, right? As soon as you blast it, they don't really have a way to rebuild better than you can, and so it just feels good to have that safety valve.
Yeah, that's probably my favorite part about this list. Just looking at it, you can see like you have answers to everything. Like it seems like the best type of like mid-range deck. Like a lot of people think blue yellow villainy and they're like, "Oh, that's hard control." But this is like the epitome of mid-range to me, because ideally you end the game in some mid-game state where you have like Forlomp Bosk, Cad Bane leader out, and you could just win like that if they don't answer it. But then
Oh yeah,
if they do answer it, like you were saying earlier, they burn all of their events, right? Killing your mid stuff. Then it's like, okay, I'll just play CAD unit and like Snoke and Avenger. And then you don't have the gas for that. And then you're like, okay, I dare you to take the game longer. I'll just play a bunch of Vigilance and mill you out.
yeah. We can make this game last 40 minutes if you want to, and then you
Yeah.
pull timeout.
Yeah, I love it.
So Yeah, and that's what happened a little bit in Swiss. Is like game one versus Akira Green or Ray Tarkentown grinds out a long time because obviously they have tools like pillage and whatnot, so they can stifle your board development or force throw, and so the game goes longer. And since they have things like crates and or like a main deck relentless without Pal's return, but like they still feel like they have hope into a deck like this until those pieces are removed. And so, like versus the Kira Green I played in Swiss, we grinded down until in our game one to the point where I asked him, was like, how many cards are left in your deck? And we're at 12 resources. He counts them out. It's 12. Vigilance, heal 5, mill 6. Vigilance, heal 5, mill 6. Out of cards, right? And it's like, that's tough. Because then, yeah, like obviously he's taking 6 to base every turn and just doesn't have game into that. And so, as if you're playing against yellow blue, you really have to know or understand if you don't have Palp returns in main deck or multiple copies of something like Relentless, and those things are already disappeared from your deck either through vigilance or you played them and then got cleanly answered by like an Avenger, you need to just scoop and go next because even more than about 25 minutes of a game one is not going to give you enough time to win twice.
What were some of your like toughest matchups in Swiss? What were some of the most interesting games you feel like?
Oh yeah. So off the rip, I played my really close testing partner Nick, Eek Foil. Some people
Shout
know
out
him on
Nick,
this.
let's go.
Obviously, he and I faced twice at the Memphis PQ, once in Swiss and once in the cut, and then of course we traveled to Nebraska and we get paired round one in this event.
So nuts, dude.
So this already feels like a like a cut game, just like, but we both understand like there's a lot. It was a long day, right? So however it goes, you can trust that the other person's the way they performed is going to help your SOS, assuming you don't like totally botch the rounds after that. And so we grinded out a game one that lasted a long time. He ended up scooping after I'd done the thing with Relentless Pursuit on Cad, like I was talking about, because I knew he was holding Han in his hand. And so by putting the shield on Cad, it really just shut the door on Han being able to do something. And I think I put a Snoke down after it. And once you land like those two and Han isn't really developed, cunning is not going to bounce that. It's only going to delay them for a turn. And so that's usually an end game state where you get the win. And then like game two, Nick had perfect lethal as time was ending, but ended up just conceding the set because he didn't want the mutual loss. And like we talked about, basically determining that whoever we should both perform decently following this, and so taking the O2 loss is better than a mutual loss, where then if you lose it all, you probably miss the cut because of just how much mutual loss hurts you. So yeah, Nick and I's round one was really tough. I played an Obi-Wan yellow. It was a cool deck idea, but the pings, and I think he didn't even have a turn one play for both games. I basically just played up the curve and beat him without really having to do anything too crazy. I think I played a Relentless Pursuit to capture a Mandalorian Sentinel to 5/6. So again,
Oof.
when they just tap out, right, and then you just have like a clean like half of your resources answer to it, it's just a blowout.
That's one
And you
thing
get to
about
do
your
more.
that's one thing I really like. It seems like you really like Relentless Pursuit. And that's something that I feel fits really well with Cad Bane because he's such a tough leader to deal with when he's out. And he's such a good target for Relentless Pursuit because you could take any 6 cost or lower threat, give him a shield. Now he's even harder to deal with. It's something that I really want to try in my Cad Green list.
Oh yeah, I mean it works on all the bounty hunters too. Like if you want to save yourself from a Tarkin town or whatever. And then like in that Obi-Wan game, I played the Relentless Pursuit on the Zuckus. So I had killed, something was out of play, and his Obi-Wan's a 4/7, but I played something to ping Obi-Wan down. I think I stacked a Bazine into Obi-Wan just to make his stat line 4/6, and then I use a Relentless Pursuit on Zuckus to capture like something in space, because that's also the crazy utility of the card is it's great anti like wing leader tech,
Yes.
or if someone buffs something, it doesn't it completely ignores like the health on board and stuff, and it's just like a mega exhaust, and it preserves your unit if it's bounty hunter. And so, but yeah, it made Zuckuss a 6/6 with a shield. Then I was able to just whack into Obi-Wan, even though yeah he's saboteur, but 4/7 Sentinel's giant. So just getting him off the board is much better than going around him and having to deal with him later. Other tough matchups, obviously blue green villainy is pretty tricky. Kira was easier for Boba Blue last set, but like even Kira Green that has enough power returns and maybe like 2 relentless, so they have a total copies of like 5 if they're running like 3 and 2. That's a lot. Usually your game plan needs to be revolving around spamming vigilance early and then targeting Bazine on the key turns where they might be holding it in their hand. And obviously if you play Bazine at any point, it's better to just get rid of Palp turns than like even a ramp card. If it's game turn 1 and you see Palp turns, just get rid of it, right? Because that's just one less thing later that's gonna come back to bite you. And you'd rather them just play out the relentless or whatever card it is and not have that second copy just waiting around once you kill the first one. Perilous Physician, I think that's another card I didn't touch on. It's great into the Han, right? Because you can stop the flip turn, stop them from getting to 7. You can also tap down on Anakin, a very like flip-centered leader that relies around the big explosive, sometimes double attack turn on the 6. And it walks things down into great ambush range. Like there's times where the Perilous on something makes it so Forlom or boss can ambush and kill them because it walks their stat line down into 4 health remaining or whatever. If let's say it's something like a Plo Koon or whatever, and so because Plo Koon is a pretty annoying stat line.
Really is.
But when you walk him down and then he's like a 1/4, that's a lot worse.
I'm sure it combos really well with Boba Fett as well.
Oh yeah, that's always the thing you have, as well as like the Cartel Spacer exhaust. My one loss in Swiss was against Mono Green ECL Palp.
Ugh,
That
yeah.
matchup has always been tough for this color combo because they have the most recursion, so like the most ways to get back their key cards that really make Blue Villainy struggle. And yeah, I mean he didn't even do anything too insane, but it was just the combination of the ramping, but also smart things like I play Bazine turn 1, but then he follows it up with a phase 3 Dark Trooper ECLing into Bazine, which then makes it a 4 HP stat line. So then I can't ambush Forlom into it next turn and live. So then I'm having to do stuff like just ambush Forlom into this phase 3 and then like ping his 1/4 Poggle. Like really unideal because usually Cad is getting these value kills and then leaving a board behind, and that's how you create an advantage. But when they're doing that kind of thing, really messes up your mid game and makes it so they're ready for this big flip and big relentless.
Yeah, and if they screw up your
Plan.
mid game and then they're able to, exactly like you just said, drop a relentless, it becomes
Blocks your blast.
really complicated. Yeah.
And that's cool. Like Cad Bane can capture a relentless or he can capture an Avenger, which is kind of funny. But usually that's only a temporary answer because the Devastator is most likely in the mix as well.
I don't know if this came up for you, but my favorite thing I've noticed against Palp is using Cad Bane unit to capture the thing that Palpatine stole from me.
Oh yeah.
Has
So then
that
you get it back.
did you end up getting that off against Palp?
That didn't happen against him because he just pretty much outvalued me to the point where it was like just with his board he wins,
Yeah.
not even like any key kills. Usually I try to do something like play a boss and then help come out with the boss, but then like something I play just with the 2 Cad ping or whatever, or the single ping, or an ambusher will deal with boss, and so you try to just make those flips as like feels bad, like less feels bad as possible. And again, relentless pursuit, like just like you're saying with the Cad, it is a nice way to get your own thing back.
Yeah.
Then when you die, it just like respawns basically.
Yeah.
Which is cool. Like if you have a nested Avenger in your own Cad, it's just like, do you really want to deal with this 7/7? So that's kind of funny.
Kill the 7/7,
yeah,
I get my 8/8 Avenger back. Yeah.
Yeah, I played against the Sabine UCL. I know a lot of people were asking how is the Sabine matchup. I find it to be pretty strong actually. If you are good with understanding the curve of Sabine's trying to take, you can isolate their plays. Like I said, Crafty Smoke is probably the best play into Sabine because it's got the most game into future interaction. This obviously Bazine is nice, but it's not going to trade as well. Assuming like they have multiple turn ones, it's kind of feels mid. And so yeah, Crafty Smuggler into like Cartel Spacer, McClunky, one of them. I loved in McClunky the Crafty Smuggler or the Cartel Spacer because then you always have this on the fly exhaust. So it punishes Darksaber, it punishes even the Sabine deploy because yeah, you can just tap it down. In my cut game versus Nick in the top four, it was game three and we were going to time, so it was who had the most damage on base or most life remaining that wins. And what happens is he has like a Zori with damage on her. I think a Zori with a perilous position and a damage or something. And so I play boss to kill it. And he knows I have like a P38 in my hand and a McClunky. So he has a tech and like a L3 on the board, and he plays cunning out of the row to bounce boss because he's afraid of that big McClunky play I was talking about. Because boss with McClunky would pretty much wipe out both of those units.
Oh
So he
yeah.
bounces boss, buffs tech, and then I have one crafty or one cartel spacer out, and on the drop and going into the turn, I drew my second cartel spacer on the boss. And so then he buffs tech, and I just play cartel spacer, exhaust the tech, and like he tapped out like 6 out of his row for that play, and that alone made it impossible for him to beat the damage I'd done on his base, and so that was like a winning play in our game three of finals or in the semifinals. And so yeah, Cartel Spacer is a great card to hold in your hand for those late game scenarios, especially if you just McClunky it and hold on to it for the time where they have a big target or something. It's just such a cheap answer that all the units are yellow except like Long Pike and the Pike Sentinel. And so you really have, as long as you have anything on the board, you have this super flexible exhaust tool.
100%. Yeah, it's a sweet card for sure.
And then like still it trades into A wings, right? So X3s, even like a red 3, it'll kill it if you ping and then whack into it.
Because
And
it
so
pings, yes.
yeah, so like in my Sabine game, he plays like a K2SO and he has a red 3 out, and I whack my cartel spacer into the red 3 because I'm trying to set up this Sabine turn because they either have K2 or they have the Sabine Darksaber play, and he plays K2, which is like a smart way to turtle but also create a threat. But then with my my cartel spacer attack, I'm able to 4-lom attack trade with K2, then ping the 1 health red 3, so still getting a 2-for-1 off that 4-lom, and that's massive, right? And so stuff like that, you really maximizing the pings. That's the success of this deck revolves around understanding what they're going to play and trying to hold the right cards, which I've tried to make it easy by putting 3 4-lom 3 boss. Like that's going to help you a lot, as long as you've played something before then.
The 2-for-1s are
Um,
massive, man. That's so much value with these pings.
yeah.
McClunky, everything that ambushes, they're all giving you 2-for-1s. And even CAD unit, like, that just over time, you get so much value.
Oh yeah. And then he's like game hand replenish if he doesn't just win the game by attacking like once. Yeah, so that was my Swiss. I lost to the Palp, and then I beat that Ray Tarkatan I was talking about. So then in the cut, I played against the Anakin Blue, on yellow again, and then the Kira player again. That was kind of funny because the top four, the other 3 players was the Kira player, Nyx, Han Yellow, and the Palp I lost to. And so it was all people I played against in the Swiss at the top four. Nick and I were paired against each other again in the semis. I'll say
Classic.
briefly though, the Anakin matchup was fairly easy. I think he misplayed a bit. Like he leads with like a Sabine unit, right? Like I was talking about, and I play Crafty Smuggler, and then he assumes that he needs to take the role of the aggressor, which is correct. However, you have to take the trade with the Crafty Smuggler because he goes 3 to base. I kill the Sabine, just lose my shield, and like that's really bad value for him, and stuff like that. And then I was again able to like isolate Anakin in the power of the dark side, and that was one of the games I played the McClunky to just insta kill Obi-Wan before the Anakin flip, and so just kind of backbreaking really low resource plays that make a difference when you're playing against a deck that's tapping out every turn for like one big thing.
Exactly. And that's exactly the MO of those red blue hero decks. It's like, I'm going to play one great unit
Value.
every turn. And then we have the 2-for-1s, or sorry, Cad Bane has the 2-for-1s to just, take over the board.
So that was the top 8. And then top 4, I played Nick again. This set was awesome. Game 1, 75-minute finals, right? So you pretty much have time to see every game to completion. But he and I, we played this matchup so many times, yellow, blue at least. But one of the funny things was he and I he'd never seen my Cad deck. He'd seen Kira, he's seen Krennic, but not seeing Cad was a big advantage to me. And I think it's that he's that good of a Han player, and it's that tight of like a matchup. It's probably a 45-55 in his favor, or as close to 50-50 as yellow blue has ever gotten to Han 1. So that's another reason I really think if you can pilot this deck correctly, it's landed well into this rising Han meta. Yeah, and him never seeing some of these interactions before was a big advantage. And so yeah, like I took the first game, and then like game 2 is classic out of control DJ stuff. You kind of a non-game, and then in our third game, because it was going to be another one of those like go to time who has the most. It's the one I was talking about where the spacer won me the game.
Yep.
But he actually DJ'd me twice that game, and I still was able to, because you are tapping out so much for that interaction. You're just not building a quality board of units as much as you are if I'm just playing Boba Fett into 4-LOM into right.
Exactly.
And so I actually was able to get enough damage in on the early game that I think, given infinite time, that match starts to skew more in his favor. But I mean, it was like 17 to like 9 on base or something when time was called, right? So and that was like getting rid of the tech that was about to hit for 6 and all that. And so, yeah, you just have to understand the win cons in moments like that. Obviously, vigilance helps a lot, and I think I've used it in that matchup because like Heal 5 basically takes away a whole big attack from his side of the board and gives you basically one more turn or a whole another unit he could have on the board of buffer before like you have to be worried about him crossing the damage you've done.
That's huge for that end of game tiebreaker too. When it relies on base damage, it's like, okay, let me just remove 5 at the end of the game and I win.
It's a rug pull for sure. Yeah.
You guys always have the craziest games. I love it.
Yeah, we're robbed. We're two PQs now where I feel like we've been robbed of like really quality stream moments for viewers.
Just that sucks. I wish we could like react to that stuff.
When we both understand each other's decks so much, it becomes a really cool like perfect answers to these plays and stuff. He's playing like L3s to free his units captured by Cad, stuff like that. Just very interesting interactions. Yeah, and then the finals, I was pretty blessed because on the other side of the bracket it was a Kira Green versus the Mono Palp, and Kira prevailed. I don't think I would have won this event if the Palp wins because I got railed by him in the Swiss, and I don't see a world where that goes different for me. Some people online have correctly identified that this is one of those decks that has like 1 week matchup, and if you can just not have to play against that twice in a day, I think you can navigate yourself to a win in the event for sure. But thankfully, Kira prevailed. I think it has to come down to blue removal. Potentially they grinded and he played Vigilance or something, decked him out, but he's got Avengers and nice clean answers, all the big end game plus more, so you have access to the blue stuff like Snoke. And so yeah, it was a rematch, and this was a fun one. I mailed him out in game 1 because I knew I got to see his deck list this time, but I knew like no main board Palp returns and stuff, right? So once you get rid of that relentless, it's gone. And honestly, only answering 1 is not that bad. And so, but some of the real backbreaking plays versus this Kira in the finals was like, I just play a Pike Sentinel or a Crafty Smuggler out because he's ramped. So I know it's my 4 resources, his 5. And he taking the stance of the aggressor he's like, let's just get Kira out. Let's start going to base. And so I play out a Crafty Smuggler or a Pike Sentinel. Don't Cad Bane because he has nothing on board. So then I'm showing that I don't have Power of the Dark Side able to play on Kira. Then he flips Kira, takes 4 damage, and then I can McClunky 3+1 Kira and just wipe her off the board so cleanly. Stuff like
McClunky
that.
is literally just extra power of the
Nastiness.
dark side at that point.
Yeah, it's nastiness, and it feels like they fell right into your trap because they don't really. These are interactions they haven't seen that often.
McClunky for 4 is really nobody considers it.
No one sees that coming, and so backbreaking, right? Because then you just got killed a leader for free, basically. Don't have to worry about the grit becoming an issue later. It's never really about the leaders, but if you let Kira sit and swing for 2 turns or whatever before Cad would come out, that's where the damage on base can become a problem if they do have a nice relentless and make you have to like burn events and sit and wait until you can isolate things. But that's another thing nice about the deck, right? You have 4 1-cost events, so you have good game into relentless if you are, even just 5 resources. If they're at 9 or whatever, fail plus that is enough, and so you still have the ability for a cheap cost to take out something like that. But yeah, in our game 3, he got me in game 2, just big swarming board of haymaker Star Destroyers. And so game 3, I think we had about 12 or 13 minutes left. And I just put the pressure on him. I threw out a Zuckuss. He was showing he didn't have removal cards for my pieces, so I had like Cad, Zuckuss, Bosk, and be a Crafty Smuggler. And when time was called, it was 26-4. So I was like a single unit, or like two units on the board, basically, of like one of them gets in because of just the way that blue-green removal works. If he doesn't have blast, then like something's going to attack. But I think in that game, he had a big play where he was going to throw a bunch of stuff out. He had a good setup if I didn't have the blast. He basically tapped out for all these big things, and I had a super laser blast going into the last turn of the game, which obviously he was like 20 base health behind me, but when you blast and then you only have 1 more turn, it's like blue-green villainy has no cards that come in ready. So the last turn was basically like just for the sake of doing it, which felt nice. Because you can't play unless you're running like Monty, you're not gonna stand up a Devastator. Hey, but that's why I think Kira players should be looking at Monty, because when I was playing Kira Yellow, I was like, bro, you could play Monty and just ping it with Kira ability to stand up whatever you want. I feel like that's an underutilized piece that
2 mana,
potentially like a mirror breaker.
1 for the Mahdi, 1 for the Kira ability, stand up anything.
Oh, yeah, it's 3, yeah, because he's 2. So
he's 2, right? Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
still, that's good. That's good.
You play a big thing, they claim because they're worried, like, oh, I need to answer that next turn. It's like, no, we're gonna stand it up now. We're gonna tend to base now or whatever. And so
that's pretty spicy.
I think Kira players and Palp players should consider like a 1-of Monty, in my opinion, as like tech that no one's ready for.
Yeah, that would be nuts.
So that was my event. Finished, I guess, 8-1. It felt great. It was, it felt like my chance to get in a win, because Han Yellow is becoming increasingly more popular, and so that's a matchup that I think only the really skilled know. Like Nick had probably the best game into me that I think Han could, but if Han just does the natural DJ game plan and you don't have an answer to it, which is, this deck does build a board faster than most other yellow blues, but like, it's still sometimes you just get run over by that combo. And so
that's the key right there, and that's what I love about this specific yellow blue is you're building a board, you're being proactive, and you just have answers in your back pocket. I think it's so sweet.
Yeah, because I mean, the Han matchup is all about gunk up the ground with units so that on the flip turn you have enough units to answer a DJ, right? You just don't attack with stuff. And so, like, I think in one of my games versus Han, I had a Crafty Smuggler that I was passing over and over against. And so he DJs me, and I attacked the Crafty Smuggler into the DJ, then McClunky. And that was my 1 resource answer. to DJ, and like if you want go two to base with Crafty, then all of a sudden now you're a resource behind now because he's gonna defeat it, and so just pass, 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 and it's like that's something that like the Kira thing they weren't thinking about that until it happened to them. Other control mirrors I think are coming down. Like if we're talking about how does this deck evolve into the future, the one card in my deck that I love but also I never played at this event was the Hotshot Blaster. I think it's incredible as a smuggle tool and a surprise attack that oftentimes you'll get lethal into base
I
because
love it.
they don't claim because they don't think that you're going to attack for more than your units are showing, especially as like this color combo. And so getting an extra two is a win sometimes. But I think in the rise of Han, I've mitigated or I've taken those and created a second No Good to Me Dead and a Syndicate Lackey. That way you have an out of hand answer to X5s in case they have too much of a board, right? You can kill Kira, you can kill Tech, DJ, whatever. And then the No Good to Me's are great into Sabine, right? They're great into Han because they'll stall the flip and then you can still play a 3-drop. And I mean, hell, if they're even decent into it's a cheap event. If you wanted to bring them in to burn against Relentless, you could do that. So yeah, that's kind of where the deck is, man. It was a blast to play. I've refunded my tickets for the PQs now that I got my win. I'm just gonna kind of work on training up my teammates, help Nick try to go get his PQ win, and
Love it.
get excited for Worlds here this summer in Vegas. So
It's awesome, man. Hey, big congrats. You deserve that win, dude. You've been working hard on this list. And I love to see how hungry everybody is for it because how new and how like you like pioneered this shit. Nobody's done this or seen this. People have tried, but like you've shown like, oh, it could be done. So big props to you, man. This is awesome.
yeah, thanks. It was that's also the fun thing about, and I felt like it was important to perform at this event was this was the first PQ. I mean, it's only my second PQ, but it's the first event really where it's felt like, or the event weekend where the meta is unknown. We hadn't had any major tournaments, and so it felt like the perfect time to bring your own secret sauce and do better. And no one's going to be ready for it because there hasn't been an event that sets the new meta precedent yet. And like, I'm bummed for my buddy JR. He brought Blue and he got ninth, and I think he only got ninth because Nick and I both beat the guys that beat him, so it hurt his opponent
Right.
match win percentage for like breakers. But his Kylo Blue was sick, and he had a really close set versus Boss Blue that would have got him in. And so it was a great event for bringing your own secret tech, and it's all about playing what you know best. Honestly, like a deck like this has game into everything if you understand the lines. So I encourage other players to don't just fall trap into net listing like a Quinlan or whatever. Like, if you like a leader or you like a color combo and they ban Boba, right, and you have to get creative, like definitely go out there and try to find something that you can pilot well that people haven't seen before. Because as the game gets longer into its lifespan, there's going to be even more narrow and niche like deck styles like this that people will sleep on until you go out and perform with it. So
Well said, man. Love it.